It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Mr. Smooth and Savvy is joined by guests from all walks of life, from the entertainment industry to authors to political and social commentators, the famous and not so famous, the controversial and the light and fluffy. We have it all. Now, here's Douglas Coleman.
Okay, please welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show, Paul Friedman. Hi, Paul. How are you?
Hi, I'm very well. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for coming on the show. Nice to have you here. As we were just talking about before we got on, you were 3 decades at CBS Television as Vice President of Creative Content. Is that correct?
Well, I was the Vice President, yes, creative content. It was marketing, what we used to call on-air promotion. So all the promos for the various programs, from news to entertainment, I was involved with through the years. I wasn't a VP for the whole 3 decades. I actually rose to that position in probably the last 10 to 15 years.
Oh, okay. You said you started as a page?
I did, yes. I was a page at CBS, at Television City, and got the job there after meeting a number of people and writing a bunch of letters and eventually getting my foot in the door. And once I got in there, I was responsible for seating audiences, giving tours of the facility, and it truly was a very, very interesting golden age of television. There was all the great shows that we talk about today, from Norman Lear and the Mary Tyler Moore Company, All in the Family, The Jeffersons, Good Times, Maude, the Mary Tyler Moore Show, Bob Newhart, Paul Sands had a program, Friends and Lovers. It was a very, very, Carol Burnett, need I forget, Tony Orlando and Dawn, The Price is Right. So the place was constantly humming, both on the Los Angeles side and in the valley lot that CBS owned on Radford.
Do you know Stu Shostak by chance?
No, the name doesn't ring a bell.
Well, he worked at CBS, it sounds like around the same time. He All in the Family, The Jeffersons, he was one of the guys that did the warm-ups for the live audiences.
Oh, no, I don't believe I knew him. Okay. I remember Mr. Lear doing some of the warm-ups, and I remember some of the producers, Bernie West, doing the warm-up at All in the Family. But there were a number of guys that came through there through the years.
Well, he eventually ended up working for Lucille Ball as her film archivist for about 10 years. And now he's doing the same thing for Dick Van Dyke. So,
oh, fantastic.
Yeah. So anyways, so you're here to talk about a book. And it looks like the book's been out for how long?
It's been out for about 2 years now. But
Okay.
we just finished the audiobook.
Right.
So that was a great undertaking after seeing that the book that I wrote on Amazon and various other outlets did extremely well. It's gotten great reviews. People who've read it have really enjoyed it. And I thought, well, let's see if we can take it to the next level. And now the audiobook, which we just finished, is out there, and it's also doing well. I think people find it very affecting and resonant, and that's the plan.
Okay, so the audiobook was done by Dave Fennoy, right?
Yes, Dave Fennoy is a gentleman that I worked with when I was at CBS. He did a lot of voiceover work for me. He's got an incredible voice. He's very, very seasoned, and he gets it. So, no, Dave is a fantastic guy, and we put the book together. He read it very well. We went back and forth. We got exactly the tone that I was hoping for. And then what I did, I thought was kind of interesting. I added some music at the beginning of the various chapters to kind of set the tone or set the mood for that particular chapter. So leading into it, there's about 10, 15 seconds of music that dovetails into his reading of the text.
Okay. Is this your first published book?
Yes, it is. Yes. By the way, it's called The Unexpected Danny Green. And it's about a young man who comes up from Mississippi. He's born on the wrong side of the tracks, but it's fortunately to the right family. Just briefly about the book, his mother's a grade school teacher, his father runs a lawnmower repair shop and is a self-taught man who checks out books at the library, who reads historical novels, and they both bring academics into the home, but at the same time, they also bring athleticism. So Danny discovers not only is he a smart kid, not that he's well seasoned in academics, but he has intellectual pursuits, but he also realizes he has a lethal left hook. So boxing becomes his way out of Mississippi and up into New York, where he eventually succeeds.
This is a fiction?
It is fiction, yes, but there's a lot of historical references and some historical characters as well worked in there. Examples would include Howard Cosell when he was still alive and calling fights in New York. So again, he arrives in New York, he's successful in New York, but it leads to many other things in his life. He realizes at a certain point, without giving things away, that he's not exactly, doesn't want to get live a life as a boxer, and he turns to writing and research, and that gives birth to ideas, and the ideas eventually lead him to Hollywood. So it covers sort of a vast array of occupations and things that happen in his life that lead him to be successful, although he does encounter a number of obstacles in his way throughout his life. So everything is sort of unexpected.
Where did the idea for this character come from? Because, honestly, when I first read through it, I thought this was a biography, like a true life story.
Well, that's great. And I think a lot of people say that or feel that. And again, because what I did is I wove into it historical things. I lived in New York for 7 years. I was raised in Los Angeles, but I lived there in New York. So I took a lot of sort of experiences I had, sort of people I encountered on the street, experiences I had, and I put them sort of in Danny's world. I transferred them or stenciled them, if you will, over his life. And so this character emerged. He came to me, and I thought, that's interesting. Might want to write about this guy. Now, I must say, there was a superintendent, in the building next door to mine, who was a very large African-American gentleman, older man, and we used to talk, and somehow in my mind, I thought, wouldn't it be interesting if his background was what I created for Danny, which that he was a fighter, and here he was now. Now, I didn't see Danny being a superintendent of a building, but the idea came to me from talking to this gentleman, even though I don't really know if he was from Mississippi, and I don't know his background. So that was just research and a desire to create a character that would sort of emerge and become someone that people recognized for his talent and for his skill.
How long did it take you to write this book?
It took about 18 months to write it, and really the idea is rewriting. The ideas for the book started to percolate, and I wrote them, and then I went about crafting the work as best I could. My feeling is always, it's one thing for me to have sort of an emotional experience while writing, but it's very important for me, for you as the reader, to be affected the way I want you to be affected. So that's the important thing, for you to have the emotional response, for you to think, oh my God, this is a real character. This is someone that possibly could exist in the world.
Did you have connections in publishing, or did you have to start at the bottom like everyone else did?
No, I really didn't have any connections per se. I mean, Simon & Schuster at the time owned CBS. CBS owned Simon & Schuster, but that really wasn't particularly helpful. I wouldn't say they weren't helpful, but they decided not to publish the book. So it was about persistence, pursuit, and it's funny because I tell people this, it's reflected in my career as well. It's two sides of the same coin. You have to have the creative, you have to have the inspiration, you have to put in the perspiration, then you have to turn the coin over and go about the marketing, and which is a very sort of cool sort of thing. It's business, show business. You have to create the show, you have to create the intellectual property, and then I have to have responsibility for my own ideas and go about selling that, which is a completely different skill set.
Well, it used to be done by several people, but nowadays, where everything is so DIY, everybody is handling everything on their own.
Yes, that's true. Which is a real education, especially in the case of my case. I mean, I worked with a fellow who actually designed the book cover for me, so I had the artwork as well. It wasn't about handing it off to someone and saying, "Hey, can you do this?" But in that regard, it's also very, very rewarding. It's very fulfilling. That, when you read something, you read the story, or somebody was affected by it, and you realize in the back of your mind, every word, everything in that book and that story, was mine. And there's a great feeling of ownership in that case.
What I was going to say was that I think it's kind of a two-way street with everybody doing everything themselves. On the one hand, like you said, it is a great education. On the other hand, some people just aren't good at a particular aspect of the whole coin, as you said. And one of the reasons why a lot of creative artists in the past, and some still do, had managers was to sort of handle that side of the coin so that they could concentrate on their art. And,
absolutely.
Well, I'll be perfectly honest. I'm really terrible at marketing. And it's probably one of the reasons why my show is sort of stuck in neutral, because we don't get out there and advertise. We've allowed it to grow organically and word of mouth through PR firms that we've been associated with. But I don't like doing it. And, but I'm cheap, so I don't want to pay anybody.
I understand.
So I'm sort of stuck with that. But I get what you're saying. It's definitely an education.
I hear you. There are limits to what one person can do. Absolutely. The thing that I feel is that I know there's a lot of talented people and a lot of capable people and a lot of people who have tremendous ideas, but I think the world sort of belongs to people who are actually industrious, and you have to show some industry. If you can combine talent and being industrious, I think then one can have more success. That's all. Because there's a lot of people sitting around going, "Well, I play the guitar," but the world didn't beat a path to their door. So you have to sort of go out there and put yourself in a situation where maybe people will respond to the material. It's a challenge. I mean, it's a challenge for you to get an audience, I understand, and for me to get someone to read my book, to pick it up, to buy it, to commit themselves to reading a novel. That was one of the reasons why I did the audiobook, because a lot of people said to me, well, I don't really read anymore, but I do listen. I listen when I commute, or when I go on a trip, or when I work out. I said, okay, I'll go about the process on my own, with my own resources, my own money. I'll hire someone to create an audiobook.
Well, it's interesting what you said, because while you were talking about that, about the guitar player, I had a flashback of a guy who was on my show who was, now I'm a musician, so I don't volunteer these sort of compliments easily, but this guy was probably one of the best musicians that I've ever heard. And when I asked him about his social media, he said he doesn't go on social media. And at that point, it struck a nerve in me. I was like, well, okay, you said about they're not going to come beating down your door, but they don't even know this guy exists. And I mean, this is how, it's like nobody is going to hear his music, because he was just 100% on that side. And it was too bad, because he was incredible.
And these are lessons that you learn in life, or hopefully somebody points them out to you, because he may not have sort of been aware how important the other aspect, the selling, the marketing, the promotion of himself is. I think a lot of what I wrote about, the reason for it, actually the success I've had in my career, is a result of a particular teacher and a coach that I had, who was very important in my life when I was 19, 20 years old. And what happened was I was studying political science at UCLA, but I always had the interest in theater and drama and writing. And I got involved in an actor's workshop. And I began attending that workshop to a guy who headed this small group of people. And the things he taught me about life and pointed things out, and the experiences I had being in scenes, reading the great playwrights, whether it was Tennessee Williams or Arthur Miller or William Inge or in comedy, Neil Simon, I started to understand what was important, A, from a dramatic standpoint, B, from being resourceful, and C, from having bringing to life different characters through the text. And this man actually was the person who said to me, the world doesn't necessarily belong to the talented, it belongs to the people who are industrious, who are resourceful. And if you can combine the two, you're going to succeed. And blindly, I kind of believed that. And it propelled me through my career and through my life. I'm not saying everything, came to me. It didn't. I was working, I was applying myself, and I had setbacks, and I ran into obstacles as well, just as my character does in the book.
Are you developing this for a television series?
Yes, definitely. It's going to be a limited series. My hope is possibly a feature-length film, but I think there's so much story here that I think the episodes would be very, very interesting for people because of the transformation of the character and the situations he finds himself in.
Who would you have play the Danny Green?
That's a really good question. There's an actor who's very, very big right now. He was in Bridgerton.
I'm drawing a blank.
Reggie Jane Page.
Okay.
Reggae Jane Page. Yeah, I think he would be tremendous. And there's a couple other young black men who I think would do really well in the role. But it's a matter of getting the material to them and or going into pre-production and approaching them with an offer.
Well, is the book a chronicle of his life, so you might have several actors to play him from young and old?
Well, you probably want someone to play him when he was very young. But then if we cast someone who's maybe in their 20s or late 20s into 30s, he could play the young man who emerges. So the beginning, yes, at the beginning, we see him as a young man emerging, and we would have to get the kid to play that part. But when he eventually emerges, goes through high school, and then into his early 30s, I think one person could probably play that.
Well, I think on that we're going to wind this down. So the book is called The Unexpected Danny Green. The audiobook is out now?
Yes, it's available on Amazon, on Google, a Walmart site, Nook. So you name it, anywhere you want to find it, Spotify, the book is available. It's called The Unexpected Danny Green. If I could just say one or two other things. Sports has always fascinated me. Individual sports have been chief, boxing chief among them. And I think with preparation and skills and desire, ultimately one has oneself to rely on. And that's the situation in Danny's life. He starts out as a fighter. The fighter gets him into a situation in the world where he never expected to be. And as a result of that, he has a lovely romance with a woman, and he finds his way into other situations that I think the reader will find fascinating, or the listener will. And I think we brought it to life in a very, very sort of flesh and blood way.
Okay. Last question before I let you go. Do you have a website that you want to give out?
Yes. PaulRFriedman.com. My name. PaulRFriedman.com. And there's reviews there. There's all sorts of things for people to see and to read about the book and then to link and buy it.
Okay, great. Well, Paul, thanks for coming on. This was a nice chat and nice meeting you. Best of luck with The Unexpected Danny Green.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to talk with you.